Melbourne supporters absolutely loved him. Opposition supporters respected and admired him and wished he played for their team. He was the great Robert Flower, Bob to his family, Tulip to his mates. And we've assembled Tommy Flower from the family, Bernie Quinlan and Todd Viney from his mates. What are your memories, Tommy? You were the younger brother.
Growing up? Look, we were just a normal family, 3 boys. And as you said, Bob was his name. We didn't know him as Robert at the time. We were 3 boys, James, Robert and Thomas. We were known as Jim, Bob and Tom.
Who were his heroes when he was a kid?
Well, he does stay John Lord.
John Lord.
Yeah, number 4.
You know anyone less like Tulip than John Lord?
Tall, ruckman, bald-headed sort of ruckman.
Slow, yeah.
Slow and tall, but he had John Lord. But as kids, I was a Collingwood supporter, he was a Melbourne supporter, but we could side off every player you could name in the VFL in those days, both Collingwood, Melbourne, every club basically. That's what we did. We lived in the same bedroom. At night, we'd just sort of rattle off numbers and that sort of thing, as you do as kids. There wasn't much else to do other than play footy and tennis.
I'm ashamed to admit this, but we still do that.
Yes, we do.
Rattle off numbers.
No, we do. It's a good pastime, isn't it?
Todd, you played just the 1 year with him?
Yeah.
Your first year was his last year, 1987?
Yep.
What were your memories of him, or what are your memories of him?
Well, I owe my career in my time at Melbourne Footy Club to Robert Flower, really. I didn't have a lot of intentions of coming to the second bottom team at the time. I'd been approached by Essendon, who'd just won 2 flags in a row, but the moment I met Robbie Flower, or Tulip, as he soon became known to me, I wanted to play with Robbie. Such was the respect that I had for him, and then we became great mates very quickly. But to play with him was a highlight. Such a fantastic player. Always stood up when he had to stand up in that first year, and he got to play finals, which he hadn't played finals, and so that was a highlight in my first year.
Bernie, all that time, were you friendly with Tulip when you were playing at Footscray and Fitzroy?
Not until I went over to Ireland in 1978. And so I started rooming with Kelvin Templeton, and he was Crook. He got Crook over there. And I stayed for an extra day in Scotland. And then I flew over, and fortunately for me, I got to room with Robbie for the rest of the trip. So from then on, I got to know what he was like on that trip. So not before that, Michael. So it was 1978 when I virtually got to know him.
When you were playing against it, or he was in the opposition team, did you appreciate his talent then?
Absolutely. Look, he was a very, as you know, we know what he was like. Physically, he was pretty narrow, but he had the moves. He had magnificent moves. And he was part of the era when they had, remember Greg Wells, who was fantastic. Tulip was magnificent. Gary Hardiman I played on a lot. He was centre-half back, I was centre-half forward, and probably Stan Alves, and those 4 players stood out. And you always knew that Tulip was going to cut you to pieces, and he did. I remember just, funny, sometimes things stand out and stick in your mind. And look, I was no muscle man, but I had a chance to run through him. So I lined him up and went at him. Fresh air, he was gone. He had the moves. He was just amazing the way he moved. It was a different era then too when Tulip was playing. I mean, he was often a target because he was such a good player. Yeah. The opposition would love to take Tulip out. And he copped a few, he copped a few nasty ones. But, stray elbows and swinging arms and that, they were sort of par for the course in those days. Yes, and Tulip was obviously, being Melbourne's best player at the time, he was a target. So, I know he did cop a couple from a few snipers around the place that we won't mention their names, but he got me as well, that bloke too.
He was fiercely competitive, so he would have been challenged throughout his career because he was so competitive. And no matter what he did, whether it was golf or tennis, and Tom would have plenty of stories about the backyard, but I found him just a super competitor. Like, he was that competitive, running, training. I was a terrible kick early days and right till the end probably. And he used to take me out and we'd go, I don't know where it was, out in the bush, and we'd play football golf. And it was all about kicking, picking a tree and seeing how many times you can kick the footy before you hit the tree. And even though he was trying to build my confidence, he wouldn't let me win. He just loved winning. So.
Well, I saw you two on the tennis court, and he used to brag that he was better than you, but I sort of thought that was a bit extravagant. But I saw that competitiveness there.
Yeah, so he would have been challenged with trying to be in a good team, trying to win games. Obviously, wasn't a great period for the footy club, but he, I think, obviously took great pride in his individual performance. Loved playing against, the stories he used to talk to me about playing, footy and playing on Keith Gregg and Shimmer and all these type of fantastic players. He took great pride out of playing on the best and doing well. 1987 preliminary final. He didn't play a final. He played 269 games without a final, correct? And then played 3 finals in a row. And the game that we should have won, there's no question about that, the preliminary final. Tulip finished with a broken collarbone. Todd, that day, I'm given the pain of the team losing and sort of almost wasting an opportunity to play in the grand final. The pain about seeing your great mate and the bloke who'd waited so long to get there must have been hurtful. No, it was shattering, and that mirrored against the elation of running off the Western Oval, the last game where we had to beat the Bulldogs at Whitten Oval, and we relied on Hawthorn beating Geelong at Geelong to get in there. So the elation of running off the ground with him in that moment of time, because the whole year was built up about give Robbie one last chance.
Tommy, let's go back to the Western Oval, or the Whitten Oval, that last home and away game. In my view, it was one of Tulip's great performances. He played the first half on Greg Ebleston, barely touched it.
Yeah, very quiet.
Yeah, and we know sort of how humble he is. He openly admitted that. But then he kicked 3 in the second half.
Got them going.
Yeah.
That day was an incredible day, and for those who haven't been to Western Oval, which is no longer a ground, it was amazing. The whole ground was, I think they said, it's the biggest crowd they've ever had there, and the whole outer was Melbourne supporters. And Todd would have known. I know when Rob ran out, he took the team and virtually ran along the boundary, along the outer. I've never heard. I was on the other side. But the crowd noise coming from the air was sort of an incredible day, wasn't it?
Well, it was over 30,000, wasn't there, that day at the Western Oval, which is amazing for that ground, that venue.
The humility was genuine, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
There was no. There was nothing about Tulip that he'd be patting himself on the back. He'd more likely put himself down than carry on about his career.
He seemed
He was very humble.
He seemed uncomfortable when people were talking about how good he was. It made him uneasy.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Very much so. Even later in his life, when he went to the footy, everyone came up to him and wanted autographs, and he was, "Oh, you want one of me? You sure?" And away he'd go.
Yeah, I think that was one of the main things for me. Was so important for young men to have role models. So to come from Adelaide and to meet Robbie, and for me to have that role model was, really, really special. And the humility, the resilience. We talked about when I was working the footy club, we developed a program, and we spoke about the Melbourne person. Well, in my mind, when I'm designing what that looks like and what are the key values and attributes of those people, was Robbie that I had in mind, particularly around the humility piece. That he was well known, really. Well loved, and any person that went up to shake his hand, say good day, can you sign this, whatever, can you come to my kid's birthday, he always did. Not one sense of, oh, here we go again, which was a great role model for me to be able to see and say that's how it should be done.
What was he like in the change rooms?
He's a practical joker. He was always a practical joker.
People would be surprised at that, wouldn't they? Because he's publicly so shy, but...
He was a practical joker, always laughing, always giggling, always looked like a 16, 18-year-old boy when he's doing something. I was running out for my first game for Melbourne. It was actually a night game, and we were running out in the race, and I was right behind him. I just couldn't wait to get out there. He was the captain running out first, and I'm running out right behind Robbie Flower, and he said, "How you going?" I said, "I'm bloody nervous." He goes, "Yeah, you look nervous, and you've got your shorts on back to front." So I had to chop my strides in the race, and only Robbie could have picked up that my shorts on back to front.
Tommy, we can't sell you short. 26 very good games for the Melbourne Football Club.
Thank you, Michael, yes.
What was it like playing with Tulip?
Well, it was, probably one of my dreams, to be honest. I loved going to the footy, just watching him. And of his 200 and 72 games, I probably would have seen probably over 200. So I then started playing a little bit of footy and was lucky enough to play all of my 26 games next to him or with him on the ground. So I played on the opposite wing to Rob, and but sometimes, like for example, I remember at Princess Park one day we were playing Hawthorn. There was a howling gale across the ground, and the play was all congested on one side, and the coach at the time said to me, "You stay on the other side." So I played the whole game on the non-attacking side, but after the game the coach did congratulate me and say I did a good job, so I must have stood out there beautifully.
Did he mother you?
Not really, no he didn't. No. He just allowed me to do my own thing, and no, he was very proud of the fact that I was playing with him, I know that, and he loved it. But those things was one of those things where we just kept going together, and it was real. I was really proud of being able to play alongside of him.
When you mentioned Ireland touring with Tulip, you played a few state games with Tulip, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I don't know, Michael. I might have. I think I would have. Yeah.
Yeah. But you don't remember.
I don't really remember the state games. I remember him in Ireland, how good he was at playing Gaelic footy.
Yep.
He was a natural at that game, because when you've got the ball in Gaelic footy and running with it, you can take one bounce, the next one you have to kick the ball to yourself and keep going. And Tulip was just so fantastic at that. He was just, without any problem, he just took it on like a duck to water. He was brilliant at it. And one of the amazing things about him, and Tommy, you knew that he'd bounce with the left hand and yet he'd kick with the right foot, which was, pretty unusual and something you don't really see much in football. But there's probably part of the quirky nature of Tulip and how good he was, that he had a few little quirky things about him that made him so good. But he had such an engaging personality, Michael. You just love being around him, because he'd just be fun all the time. He just loved, even if we went to a couple of football functions and he met these people, by the end of the night they were almost his best friends. He just engaged with everyone. He had a fantastic personality.
One of my fondest memories of the 70s and 80s was blokes playing on each other. If Melbourne played Footscray, Flower played on Hawkins, and against North it was Shimmer or Keith Gregg. Who's in your mind the epic battles?
Oh, look, there were many. As you mentioned, every club had a dedicated wingman, and it was basically back in the 70s. Every most skillful player from each side was basically a wingman, and there were fantastic battles. But he. If you asked him today, or if he was here, he would say Shimmer was his favourite. He loved Shimmer. He loved the way he went about it. He was always at it and what have you. But he would definitely say Shimmer. But he always used to have some great battles with Michael Turner from Geelong. Hawkins, yeah. And Jeff Ablett from Hawthorn was another wingman that was really good. But every club, you could go through every team, and they would have had a reasonable wingman playing for them.
Do you remember Chiller's first game against Geelong?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
How did he go?
Very well. I was at the MCG. He played on the wing, and it was about round 8 or 9, I think he came in.
It was 10.
Round 10. Yeah, he went quite well. He played on, gee whiz.
Who did he play on, Tommy?
Oh, I'll have to think about that one.
Yeah, that's all right.
But no, he went well, and I'll never forget the night before selection. We were at home, and we were all sitting around, and the phone rang, and he'd only played, I think, 2 reserve games, and he played 6 or 7 under-19 games that year, and it was Noel McMahon who was chairman of selectors, and then Dad answered that he wanted to speak to Dad, so Dad got on the phone, and Dad's going, no, he's too young, Noel, too young. We go, what's going on here on the phone, And I said, I think you might be getting a game this week. He's going, no. Anyway, Dad relented, and they asked for Dad's permission, obviously, because he was 17, and he relented in the end. He allowed him to play, but he was initially not going to let him play.
Tommy, there's 2 of my favourite photos of Tulip in this book by Ashley Mallett, the former Australian off-spinner. There is the young Tulip with the Coke bottle glasses.
Very attentive.
And the typical smile. And there is the classic Robert Flower pose. Yeah.
From a young child to him, that's exactly what you see.
Bern?
Yep, that's a beautiful shot of Tulip, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, if they were ever going to do a statue, and I hope they do, Michael, that'd be the perfect one to do of Tulip.
Yeah, and
because that's a classic pose from him. You remember some players in certain ways, and probably not a lot that you don't. But you do remember Tulip from that shot. It's a fantastic shot of Tulip, and I hope they do a statue of him one day. It'd be terrific around.
Well,
the
Todd,
MCG.
on that question, Tulip would have played 150 games here at the MCG. I mean, is there anyone that's more synonymous with this ground?
No, and Barras, but you know, it is our home ground. You know, this is where we were born out of as a club. You know, the oldest Australian rules football club in the world. So it would be fitting. Hopefully, in a day not too far away, we can see the great Robert Flower in that pose. I reckon would be really synonymous. Everyone that has anything to do with Melbourne would love to see it.
I'm prone to big statements, but I can't think of anyone in my time in football who is so universally respected as Tulip.
Completely. Other teams, you know, other team supporters, you know, they just absolutely respected him.
Yep.
I don't think we would ever have got booed by the opposition, Tulip, ever.
I agree with that.
Like Gary Wilson never got booed.
Yeah.
And he was a similar type player, I suppose, to Tulip, you know, loved by everyone.
Yeah.
But he ran through Jimmy Jess one day and he got booed by the crowd after that. Yeah. But Tulip, I don't think he would have ever got booed.
Recall it. I think he was universally respected. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't want to finish on a sad note, but I've got Tulip was 59 when he died in 2014. For all of us, it was massive for you as a brother and for us as his friends. And I can still remember that day vividly. I can remember being told about it. I was on a tram, and Bernie, it must have knocked you and Todd, it must have knocked you two around.
Oh, it was devastating at the time, absolutely, because it came as such a shock too, Michael. That week he'd been inducted into the Carbine Club as a legend, and less than a week later he was gone. You know, he was full of life and just loving life, having a great time, enjoying golf with Tommy, Stan and I, and all of a sudden it just hit us like a ton of bricks. You know, and it hit me really hard at the time, really hard. As it hit everyone, you know, because he's such a loved character. Yeah. You just loved being with Tulip, you know, all the time.
Todd, do you remember where you were?
Yeah, I was at the AFL draft combine when I got the phone call, but it was, as Bernie said, it's just in disbelief. Because he had a few little health things in the couple of years prior to that, but nothing really sort of major. But then to get that phone call was just total disbelief.
And he got over that big open heart operation, which, you know, he split from down to his belly button, from the top down to his belly, and he'd got over that, and he'd just come back to playing golf, and everything seemed to be on the up and up with him. And, you know, he just got to the stage in his life where he could just start to appreciate what he had achieved in his business life. You know, he could just settle back and relax and play golf and enjoy his place down at Sorrento and enjoy his time with Tommy. And the rest of his friends.
So it's not flippant to say. I think we can all say we all loved him genuinely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And boys, it's been great. It's really enjoyed talking about the great Tulip and his career and his contribution to the Melbourne Football Club.
Want to see more from the D's? And don't forget to subscribe up here.